What is going on, everybody? So recently I've been playing Breath of the Wild, and during my latest playthrough, there was some things that I realized the developers could tweak or build upon in order to deliver the follow-up to one of the best video games of all time. First off, I love Breath of the Wild. It's one of my favorite video games of all time. It's not perfect, but whether you're a gamer or not, anybody who picks up this title will have a phenomenal experience. So without further ado, here are 5 ways that Tears of the Kingdom can be the best sequel. Number 1. A richer world. I think there's an interesting dichotomy in Breath of the Wild. It can feel like it's teeming with life, and at the same time, it's not. There's only a handful of villages and civilization is hardly thriving. Breath of the Wild is 80 square kilometers, and since this is the first mainline Zelda game that will be sharing the same space as its predecessor, the developers over at Nintendo can focus on filling up this space with quality content. Breath of the Wild created a cyclical flow of being in and out of the frontier, and traveling back to a stabler town to restock on supplies. In the sequel, exploration will be important, but it may not be the focus like it was in Breath of the Wild. Perhaps it will be on the relationships between the denizens of Hyrule. What if the title, Tears of the Kingdom, refers to the tragedies throughout Hyrule following the aftermath of Ganondorf's return? The developers of the game have already stated they did not want to reveal the title too soon because they thought it may spoil too much of the game. Perhaps tears are correlated with souls, and even a gameplay mechanic. What this could mean gameplay-wise is Link and the player may be spending more time with characters taking a significant role in Hyrule. We could see more of the dynamics between the different clans and villages. Sheikah technology is all over Breath of the Wild, but the Sheikah themselves are presently taking on a passive role. Meanwhile, the Yiga clan are at large and will ambush you in the wild. Maybe we will see a more active role from the races in order to stop the malice of Ganon. From the trailer, it looks like some time has passed since the events of Breath of the Wild, so it would make sense if Hyrule had a bit of a reconstruction period. I don't know about you, but I feel like the whole dystopia trope is a bit wore out. I'm tired of just seeing ruins. Let me see life. Number 2. Better dungeons. Hyrule Castle felt like a tease of what we could have seen instead of 120 shrines. I mean, finding the shrines out in the wild was cool, but do we really need 120 of them? I'd settle for half if we got 4 more Hyrule Castles, correlating with the different elements and environments. In Hyrule Castle, there are so many ways to advance in this dungeon. It's not linear. You can get to Calamity Ganon any way you choose. There's no tiresome grocery list to complete, you just go, giving you, the player, the freedom to explore and loot however you desire. That's the power of choice. This dungeon design was prominent in Elden Ring. There was plenty of ways to advance in dungeons and castles, and I was a big fan of that. The Divine Beast had some interesting concepts, and the significance of the 4 beasts was a cool callback to Majora's Mask's giants. But I am on the side of the fanbase where the design of the interior of these mythological mechs are lacking in diversity. The dungeons and temples from previous Zelda games allowed the developers to reach further into the lore with their architecture and the spirits that dwelled within it. All the same can be said about the bosses and their designs in Breath of the Wild. I mean, I couldn't tell you one distinction from the Blight Ganons other than he uses a spear and he uses a sword, etc. What if the malice affected different animals, creatures, or even races? Look at Naydra for an example. The malice had infected the dragon spirit, altering its design. Liberating Lanayru's guardian from Ganon's poison aligns with the themes of the franchise and made for an interesting mini-boss fight. Hopefully in Tears of the Kingdom, we will see this staple return back to this franchise. Number 3. character, and story. When Breath of the Wild first came out, I was actually a little disappointed because it didn't focus on the characters as much as it did the gameplay, which in retrospect sounds silly. But over time, I fell in love with it. I'd like to see the franchise's main trio get more focus. I think Zelda got a lot of characterization in Breath of the Wild, so maybe Tears of the Kingdom can focus more on Link and Ganondorf. Link and Ganondorf's dynamic creates an opportunity to flesh out both characters. Why does Link feel like he has to be Hyrule's protector and savior? Because he is told that it's his destiny? What were his motivations to become the best swordsman in Hyrule? Was it all just a prophecy, or did Link have some personal ambitions as well? Wind Waker characterized Ganondorf in an interesting way, giving him real motivations for his desire to conquer Hyrule. Something else I hope Tears of the Kingdom does is give Link and the player more agency. Link wakes up 100 years after the downfall of Hyrule, creating a lack of tension. If these type of earth-shattering events occur during our playthrough, Link and the player will feel even more heroic rising to that challenge. But the Triforce wielders don't have to hog all the limelight. There's plenty of amazing side characters in the franchise, like Midna or Impa. Breath of the Wild had several side characters that have a brief role, but feel underutilized and underdeveloped. Sure, we can hear about how Prince Sidon bested a monstrous Octorok, but what about the expression, show, not tell? Instead of just hanging out in Zora's domain, what if he was leading some Zora warriors in the frontiers of Hyrule? Instead, Sidon felt like a means to an end for Link to find Zora's domain. The champions from Breath of the Wild are all gone, with nothing but memories for the player and Link to restore. I just don't think this concept works really well in a character manner. There's no payoffs for the narrative to work toward their character arcs, so maybe Tears of the Kingdom's characters will feel a little bit more relevant. Number 4. A music mechanic. Changing the weather, time of day, etc. Give Link his Ocarina or his Wind Waker back, or something. Breath of the Wild called back a lot of notes from the original Zelda, with how the exploration and gameplay were the focus. Perhaps now Nintendo can implement more beats from the 3D Zelda games. Many Zelda fans may have noticed the absence of a magic meter in Breath of the Wild. The Sheikah Slate and the champion's abilities make for a substitute mechanic-wise, but personally I think the game lacks that mystic touch. I think having some kind of instrument would fill that void. Literally. Even if it only had 2 to 3 main uses, like changing the weather, opening up temples, or calling Epona. Weather plays such a pivotal role in Breath of the Wild. Rain and lightning can throw a monkey wrench in your designs during gameplay. You could be trying to light lanterns to progress a mission, but will have no success if it's raining. Exploration is more difficult due to Link sliding down wet surfaces while climbing. And if you're fighting enemies and it begins to thunderstorm, you may find yourself up Zora's Creek without wooden weapons. I know that a lot of these inconveniences make the game seem more difficult, and difficulty is essential in gaming, but when that difficulty hinges on waiting, for waiting's sake, I hardly call that a challenge. A game shouldn't rely on making the player wait in order to progress. If the game makes Link earn these abilities to call a horse no matter where he is with a mystic melody, or turn rain into sunshine with the help of a magical instrument, I think fans of the series would welcome back this Zelda staple. Number 5. Evolved Combat. I thought the combat was pretty cool in Breath of the Wild, but I'd like to see it grow in Tears of the Kingdom. After all, Evolved is just dev love backwards. With all the new weapons at our disposal, literally, the developers should really fine-tune and add to the established combat. The addition of the Flurry Rush is satisfying and is very much a spectacle to see Link slicing through enemies while time is slowed down. But other than just landing in some hits, bringing back some movesets from previous games along with some new ones would spice up the combat. The Helm Splitter, Backslice, these two moves would make for welcome returns. and bringing back the armor breaking mechanic would make these moves even more essential. Fighting monsters and enemies would be even more engaging and demand more strategy if different enemies were wearing armor. From the 10 minutes of gameplay that we have seen, it looks like we are going to be getting even more weapon types thanks to Link's fuse ability. It appears that the hotkey menu has been refined, but it still pauses the game. I wish the game didn't have to come to a complete stop for this. It would be nice if you could use the D-pad to scroll over in real time, or at least give you the option. With that being said, Breath of the Wild did a lot right, but these revisions I think would make the gameplay even more fluid. Well guys, there you go. That's 5 ways that Tears of the Kingdom can be the best sequel to Breath of the Wild. But we are not done. Let's go ahead and hit up some quality of life fixes that absolutely need to be in this game. Number 1, no more low FPS areas. Seriously, if this game comes out and we walk into Korok Forest or around a lot of enemies or water and we're still getting that low FPS, I'm gonna be pretty upset. Alright, number 2, the player and Link need to be able to cook multiple items at once. Yes, I think this little animation is really cute and whatever, but man, if I have the materials, then let me do that instead of having to sit there and go through this 10 times. Multiple save files would be nice. I don't know how many times I've been playing Breath of the Wild and I want to start a new file, but I'm like, I don't want to completely ditch my old one, and what am I going to do? Start a new file on another profile on my Switch? No. The answer's no. If the follow-up to Breath of the Wild can implement some of these changes, then I think it won't just be a great sequel, but maybe the best Zelda game. Do you agree with the contents on this list? Let me know in the comments. And until next time guys, y'all be good. Peace.